Taking to the air has always had an element of risk. It still does. The odds are against a crash, but when they do occur, it is a powerful reminder. Join us as we explore this dangerous age of air disasters. Every year, millions of travelers use airlines to deliver them to their destinations. Flight is the best value and most convenient means of long-distance transportation in the world. Passengers book their flights in the belief that the industry cares about the customer, spending vast sums of money on research and technology to make their services safe. Statistically, they're assured flying is safer than crossing the road. But year in, year out, there are incidents that challenge this accepted wisdom. And all too often, the glossy corporate images are replaced with those of terrible destruction. Safety standards throughout the world differ greatly. For flights in or out of the U.S., the FAA expects airlines to meet minimum safety requirements. But some don't. And once you're away from the FAA's jurisdiction, all bets are off. You may be flying on planes that have been banned from American skies. And in most cases, no one, not the airline, charter company, travel agency, or tour company, is obligated to inform you. Air accidents are meticulously investigated and documented. With so many lives and such huge profits at stake, every last detail is minutely examined and correlated. In most disasters, there's a chain of factors that combine to cause the tragedy. But the most common factor is air crew error. Air crew, or cockpit error, is responsible for nearly 3/4 of all civil aviation accidents worldwide. The European-developed Airbus A320, the world's first fly-by-wire airliner, was launched with a fanfare of optimism. In June of 1988, one of Air France's first fully operational A320s took off on a demonstration flight, loaded with 130 excited passengers. First, it had to make a flyby for an air show crowd at a nearby airfield. Initially, the onboard computer systems were blamed for the disaster, which claimed 3 lives. But investigators found nothing wrong with the plane, and a commission of inquiry accused the pilot of cowboy-like behavior for pushing the plane beyond its limits. The pilot had failed to judge his height correctly, and despite frantically applying full throttle, the aircraft couldn't regain altitude. A French court convicted the pilot of manslaughter. The pilot of this chipmunk stunt plane misjudged the arc of his dive during a display in New Zealand. Halfway through an intricate display at this 1993 military exhibition in England, a small miscalculation by these 2 Russian pilots resulted in a spectacular example of pilot error. pilots had 15 seconds to eject safely and avoid certain death.
I got it, I got it.
One of the most common types of air accidents is known as controlled flight into terrain, which effectively means crashing into obstacles that the crew did not realize were there. In fact, a passenger is 20 times more likely to be involved in this type of accident than a mid-air collision. Inevitably, controlled flight into terrain almost always involves an element of crew error. To help reduce the incidence of aircrew error, most modern airliners are equipped with flight management systems, which navigate the aircraft between strategically positioned beacons along the flight path. FMS is particularly useful during long-distance night flights. However, FMS depends on accurate input from the flight crew. A manual change of course or altitude, not input by the crew, can result in the FMS obediently realigning the aircraft toward the next beacon, regardless of obstacles like mountain ranges. Snow, ice, and fog conspired to cause this airliner to skid off the end of the runway. Flat light and glare from the snow were factors in this accident. Weather is frequently listed as a cause of accidents, in that the weather was bad at the time, and the accident probably wouldn't have happened had the weather been good. Loss of control of an aircraft due to mechanical failure like this jammed rear helicopter rotor is one of the greatest tests a pilot can face. As investigators picked through the debris of United Airlines Flight 232 at Sioux City Airport in July 1989, it was difficult to believe that anyone could have survived. The DC-10 had suffered total hydraulic failure, which meant that the pilot had no control of the systems that slow and guide the plane. It hit the runway at 200 miles an hour. Yet amazingly, some passengers walked away from the wreckage unharmed. "184 of the 296 people on board survived, a miracle credited largely to the skill of the pilot, Captain Al Haynes. Engine failure caused the hydraulic system damage, but Captain Haynes stayed remarkably calm as he brought the stricken aircraft in.
I have serious doubts about making the airport. Have you got someplace near there that we might be able to ditch? Unless you get control of this airplane, we're going to put it down wherever it happens to be. 360 at 11, you're cleared to land on any runway. You want to be particular and make it a runway.
This Swedish fighter, losing control over Stockholm, was designed to be Europe's premier strike aircraft. It narrowly missed the crowd gathered to watch its launch.
Vi chartar JAS. Vi chartar flygplanen.
As the test pilot, Lars Radestrom, ejected, the high-tech aircraft turned into nothing more than an expensive bomb. Radestrom had crashed in the prototype jet 4 years earlier. Engine failure, as in this Turkish Airbus, which plunged 20,000 feet over central Paris, is a common accident cause. Engine fire is inextricably linked to engine failure, but often is more cataclysmic, as ruptured fuel lines can spread flames to the airframe with devastating speed. Fire was a major factor in the world's worst air disaster, in Tenerife in 1977, in which 583 people died after 2 747s collided on the runway. Passengers watched in horror as the engine of this Boeing 747 caught fire during takeoff. The pilot shut down the engine and jettisoned the fuel, a necessary safety precaution that carried the risk of reignition. On landing, the passengers' gratitude was self-evident. In an aging world fleet, the chances of structural failure will inevitably continue to rise as time passes. Experts said that it was 50-1 against the pilot managing to land this Boeing 737 after the roof blew off on approach in Hawaii in 1988. The stewardess was sucked out of the 20-year-old jet, but luckily all the passengers were wearing seat belts at the time of the structural failure in preparation for landing. Once again, it was the skill of the pilot that prevented a terrifying ordeal from becoming a catastrophe, and survivors were quick to thank him. On many airlines, chances are nearly 50-50 you'll fly on vintage planes that took their maiden voyages no later than the Carter administration. All major U.S. carriers have planes in their fleet that are more than 25 years old. Airliners' airframes are like balloons, expanding and contracting every time they take off and land. The stresses they're put under are huge. This jumbo's cargo door ripped free just after takeoff. Investigators discovered an 8-inch hole in the roof of this TriStar. Age may have played a factor in the crash of TWA Flight 800 off of Long Island in July of 1996. An explosion in the center fuel tank of the 25-year-old Boeing 747 caused the plane to break apart, sending all 230 passengers and crew to their deaths. Although the exact cause of the explosion may never be known, investigators suspect that an electrical problem ignited fuel and air fumes in the center fuel tank. At first, the investigation focused on the possibility that a bomb or a missile caused the 25-year-old jumbo jet to explode in midair. But those possibilities have been ruled out. One NTSB official suggested that damaged wires and corrosion of a fuel probe could have caused the fuel tank to explode, but also admitted that many of the other potential ignition sources may also be age-related. close look at some causes when Air Disasters returns on TLC. The International Civil Aviation Authority publishes an annual safety review that records the numbers and causes of accidents worldwide over the previous 12 months. In 1997 alone, there were 54 fatal airline accidents worldwide, an average of more than one a week. 1,190 passengers lost their lives. Surprisingly, given the commonly held view that non-scheduled or charter flights are somehow less safe than scheduled, both categories suffered nearly the same number of fatal disasters. With aircrew error featuring in 3/4 of all fatal accidents, it's easy to lay the blame at the pilot and cabin crew's feet. But rarely is it the only factor. Modern aircraft and their associated systems have become increasingly complex. Training, especially in underdeveloped countries, can barely keep up with rapid developments in the industry. Other common causes for accidents include runway incursions, which are usually caused by airport vehicles interfering with aircraft as they land or take off. Even without that interference, half of all accidents occur during approach and landing. The list of less common factors that can contribute to an air disaster is virtually limitless. These include running out of fuel and mid-air collisions. Ground crews can contribute to a disaster through operations errors. In one instance, a plane was filled with the wrong type of fuel. Hangar mistakes are often not listed as causes until late in investigations, so any resultant accidents could be recorded as aircrew error. Also, low-budget airlines with poorer standards may allow crews to fly with safety defects that others would ground aircraft for. Subcontracting of labor is a common money-saving strategy used by airlines and was a factor in the crash of ValueJet Flight 592 in May of 1996. The DC-9 crashed, nose first at more than 500 miles per hour into the swampy Everglades, killing all 110 people on board. The NTSB concluded that the crash was caused by a fire in the cargo hold, fueled by oxygen-generating canisters, which had been improperly handled and labeled by the low-cost airline's maintenance contractor. System failure figures highly in the list of key accident causes. The pilot of this Boeing 737 knew that he had to bring the plane in with one set of wheels folded uselessly beneath him. At the last minute, he aborted. Four attempts later, bringing the plane in within feet of the perimeter fence, he finally touched down. All the passengers escaped, extremely shaken, but unhurt. Even hijacking is listed among the causes of airline crashes. November 1996. A startled tourist captures the scene as a hijacked Ethiopian jet with 175 people on board crashes into the water off the Comoros Islands in the Indian Ocean. Only 50 survived the hijackers' forced suicide pact. During the 4-hour ordeal, the plane lost an engine and its communications. One of the hijackers, bolstered by a bottle of whiskey, decided to fly the plane himself. As the crippled jet ran out of fuel, the pilot, who had been hijacked twice before, and the co-pilot, who had been bludgeoned with an axe, wrestled back control to lift the sinking airliner over a hotel and into the shallow water. The difference in safety standards between the best and the worst regions of the world is common knowledge in the air industry. According to industry data, the region with the consistently worst safety in the world is Africa, followed closely by Latin America and the Caribbean. Next comes Asia, China, the Indian subcontinent, Eastern Europe, and the CIS former Soviet states, which are significantly worse than they were as the USSR. The safest regions are Western Europe, North America, the Middle East, and Australasia, which boasts one of the safest airlines in the world, Qantas, which has never had an accident. The disparity between the least and the most safe is massive. You are 16 times more likely to die on a domestic African flight than on an American one. Latin America is only half as bad as Africa, but nearly twice as dangerous as Southeast Asia. In fact, third world nations operate only 12% of the world's fleet, but record an accident rate that is 10 times that of developed countries. The FAA provides some help with a program that ranks foreign governments' oversight of their airlines, but only if they fly into the US. Alarmingly, initial assessments revealed 2/3 of the countries did not meet international safety standards. But the FAA program covers barely half of the nearly 200 countries that conduct international flights. There are no laws that require countries to disclose their airlines' safety records.
Eject, eject!
Coming up, a look at the military when Air Disasters returns on TLC. Most travelers would assume that the airline their travel agents book them on will be the airline carrying them to their destination. But this is not always the case. Increasingly, package tour operators and airlines around the world are wet leasing foreign registered aircraft to supplement their fleets during peak flying times. In most cases, they are not obliged to tell tourists where these aircraft are from. Empty life vests and debris were all that was left after a jet carrying 189 people from the Caribbean to Germany crashed into shark-infested waters off the Dominican Republic in 1996. Many of the passengers who were scheduled to fly on a Dominican Republic airline would have been surprised to learn that the flight was actually owned and operated by a Turkish charter carrier. The crash was attributed to mistakes made by the overworked Turkish crew. Investigators could find almost nothing recognizable on this Colombian mountainside, where a Boeing 727 with 53 passengers and crew crashed in April of 1998. Although officially listed as an Air France flight, the 26-year-old plane was actually owned and operated by TAME, a commercial division of the Ecuadorian Air Force. The crash, which was the airline's 12th since 1971, has again raised the question of how to ensure the safety of flights conducted under agreements between airlines from different countries. The information regarding the ownership, maintenance, and operation of many aircraft is not readily offered by airlines, creating a lack of protection that is unique. Surely, when you place the lives of your loved ones in the hands of an airline, you should have this important information available to you. The implications of not knowing could be grave indeed. The military has always been at the forefront of cutting-edge aviation technology. Western experts said that this Russian Sukhoi performed maneuvers that were aerodynamically impossible. But despite the huge defense budgets supporting military fleets, they're no more exempt from the principal causes of accidents than their civil counterparts.
There goes forward.
Jump the carriages.
There goes. Yep.
And he's got it.
He's got the cable and
Yeah.
he's just going off the runway now.
And the undercarriage has collapsed.
Yeah.
They're still inside. Bloody hell, I'd have been out of running by now.
Canopy's open.
Yeah.
Okay, now.
We're just orbit.
Wave off power. Raise your gear. Raise your gear. Power.
Eject, eject! Who's playing guard?
In 1991, the crash of this F-22 stealth fighter prototype caused serious concern in the Pentagon, where its multi-billion-dollar development fund was authorized. It's now in service. So is this Swedish fighter, which was almost scrapped after this prototype crashed. With such a high price in human and material terms, it's no wonder that the military place great stock in exhaustive research and testing, a practice both envied and utilized by the civilian industry. This test shows what happens when aviation fuel is released into a stream of air and ignited. It forms a fine mist, which burns incredibly easily and fiercely. Fire like this is the most common cause of death in survivable air crashes. In 1984, 2 fully fueled World War II-era planes were test crashed. The second aircraft's fuel contained a coagulant fuel additive designed to turn to gel when agitated, which would dramatically reduce the spread of fire. This persuaded authorities to conduct a full-scale test by crashing a remote-controlled Boeing 720 whose fuel tanks contained the new fuel additive. The test would cost $11 million. Aviation authorities also took the opportunity to place on board 64 test dummies, some wired to monitoring equipment, to investigate the effects of crashing on humans. The test would dictate whether the industry would commit itself to spending billions worldwide making the additive mandatory. Such a commitment required conclusive test results. So it was with great expectations that the Boeing took off from Edwards Air Force Base in California. Not the desired non-combustible result. Everything, including the test dummies, was incinerated. The industry has been conducting research into the safest seating positions for years. The head and lower legs hitting the seat in front cause most injuries. As a result, the recommended brace position was changed. But some experts argue that rear-facing seats would reduce the risk of serious injuries substantially. But airlines vetoed them, citing studies that showed they could cause confusion in evacuations. Runway overshoots occur frequently. 5 people died on this Boeing 737 in New York. All airports are required to have a 1,000-yard skirt to accommodate them, but that is often not enough. This porous concrete bed was developed to slow aircraft down. But it would cost billions to install in every airport. Next, the thrill and danger of air shows. When Air Disasters returns on TLC. Air Air shows are a marketplace for the industry to present its wares. They also attract the public by the thousands. Everyone enjoys the thrills as pilots push aircraft to their aerodynamic limits. Organizers of such events have tried to ensure public safety while accommodating the industry demands of this highly competitive arena. But with increasingly intricate aerial displays, accidents do occur. This pilot ejected, and the plane crashed onto the empty airfield. But at this display in Japan, the airfield was much smaller. The jet struck a house, killing 11 people. Yet, risky maneuvers continue. Five years later, at a display in Germany, 3 jets from an Italian stunt team collided in midair over a crowd of 300,000 stunned onlookers. The pierced heart was among the most dangerous maneuvers ever attempted. The result? A deadly fireball careens through the panicked spectators, killing 70 and injuring more than 100 others. Authorities finally took action, and the most dangerous maneuvers were banned. A year later, at the Paris Air Show, a MiG-29A Fulcrum fighter, performing a routine, lost engine power and slid into a dive. The pilot ejected just feet from the ground, but was conscious and able to speak. Year after year, accidents occur with a chilling similarity. This crash into Lake Ontario happened in 1991, 4 years before a similar tragic accident in almost precisely the same spot. At this air show in England, a sad but familiar scenario unfolded.
Providing very high fuel economy here. Let's turn to the static. Now moving around.
The show's emergency services were criticized for taking 6 minutes to cross the runway and attend to the accident. Danger looms large as pilots continue to push the limits of their aircraft. When we return, some revealing statistics. The air transport industry is huge, and it's constantly expanding. In the last 10 years, the world commercial fleet has grown by nearly 50%. Over 9,000 new aircraft have taken to the skies, and departures have increased at such a staggering rate that the 28,000 aircraft in the world fleet now make over 15 million flights a year, with an average of 150 passengers a flight. Payloads are measured in billions of tons. But by the industry's own admission, if safety does not improve, accidents will continue to increase in direct proportion to this expansion. Growing industry, growing risk. In just the past few years, world aviation authorities have begun to take steps to attack the major causes of airline disasters. But even if the cause of disasters can be reduced, the rapid growth of the industry will assure a growing rate of fatalities. There are bright signs, however. For the first time in history, the International Civil Aviation Authority will begin to audit countries for deficiencies in their aviation systems. And in the U.S., the FAA has recently instituted numerous new safety rules and programs to reduce the most common types of air disasters. But only time will tell if these measures can slow the growing annual roll call of fatalities. And the question that will continue to be asked is, are these efforts enough? Especially at a time when the airlines are reaping record profits. Against this complex background, the risks we all face are very real. And the answers to questions about the ultimate safety of our skies are still far out of reach.